Well, hello, and welcome to this English lesson where I'm going to talk about everyday things, things that you just see as you go through your day. I designed this lesson because I was keeping track throughout the week. Every day as I went through my day, I would add a few more things to my list. And then my list got bigger and bigger. It's not super large, but I just made a list of all of the little things that I used throughout the day, and specifically things where I thought, do people know what this is called in English? Do people know how to talk about this thing in English? So this lesson is about everyday items. Some of them are household items. Some of them are things you would see as you go through your day, maybe at work or while you're shopping. But we're going to talk about things that you see every day, and then I'll teach you some phrases in English about how to use them. The first item is something that we call tweezers. Let me say that again for you, tweezers. Let me make this slide a bit bigger. Tweezers are something that you use when you get a sliver, especially sometimes when you work with wood. If any of you have built something out of wood, or if you move something made out of wood, sometimes you get a little sliver in your finger. And then you get tweezers, and you use the tweezers to pull out the sliver. Sometimes when you get a sliver, it can be annoying because you don't know which way the sliver went in and you don't know how to pull it out. I do not get slivers while I'm teaching, so I don't use tweezers very often. But the other day I was outside helping Jen and I got a sliver actually in the finger I keep pointing to. And so when I came in the house, I said, I went to the drawer in the bathroom where we keep the tweezers and they weren't there. And I said, where are the tweezers? I have a sliver. I need to pull out my sliver. So the first everyday item, maybe not every day, but definitely an item I used recently is tweezers. We might call these a pair of tweezers, the same way we use pair to talk about scissors, even though there's only really one of them because there's two sides. We might say pair of tweezers, but I normally just say the tweezers. And then the image I showed you at the beginning is called a clothespin. So when you wash your clothes, there are two things you can do with your clothes afterwards. You can put them in a dryer, and then it uses electricity or natural gas to heat your clothes and dry them. But we hang our clothes on a clothesline, and we put clothespins on them. So the clothespin holds the clothes that need to be dried on the clothesline. But we also use this for something else, which is why it's on the everyday items list. When we eat chips, when we open a bag of chips, what you might call crisps if you're learning British English, when we eat half a bag of chips, we roll up the top and we put a clothespin on to hold the bag shut. So not only are clothespins used to hang up clothes, we also use them in our kitchen to close open bags of chips so that they stay fresh. I'm sure everyone has done that before. Notice this word looks difficult to pronounce, but it's not too bad. It's clothespin. So you don't have to say the TH as a the sound. It's just clothespin. And we use it to close things, which has the same pronunciation. I do not use one of these. This is not one of my everyday items. I do not smoke. I do not light a cigarette every day. I don't. But we do sometimes have a campfire. And when we have a campfire, I get some pieces of wood and I stack the wood up and I put some papers underneath. I actually like to use cardboard pizza boxes when I start a fire. And then I use the lighter. So you kind of flick the lighter to make a flame come out. And then I use the lighter to light the fire. Some people carry a lighter with them every day because they are smokers. Smokers often will have a lighter with them. But we always have a lighter in our house because we do like to have a campfire every once in a while. And so then we use the lighter to light it. And I do have a Bic lighter. So thank you to all of you from France for making good pens and good lighters. And if you don't have a lighter, you'll use matches. This is a box of matches. You can also have matches in what's called a book of matches, where you flip up the front and you can pull a match out. We do not have matches in our house. Mostly we don't have matches because matches are dangerous to have around when you have children. Our children are older now, but matches can be dangerous. What you do with a match is you take a match out and you strike the match. There's usually a spot where you can you strike the match against and then it lights. When you have a book of matches, there's a little black strip and you strike it. But you can also get matches that are called strike anywhere matches, where you can even light them, just on a rock or on a brick. But yes, we do not keep matches in our house because it's too easy for kids to play with matches and accidentally start fires. I've used these recently. I just used these earlier this week. We would call this a nail clipper, or we would call these nail clippers. Similar to how we use, when we say scissors, we always add an S. You can also add an S when you talk about nail clippers. These are what you use when your nails are too long and you need to trim your nails or clip your nails. So I like to keep my nails nice and short. Jen actually keeps her nails a little bit longer. Sometimes women have longer nails than men, and sometimes they put nail polish on. Jen actually keeps her nails a little longer because it helps her when she works with the flowers. She can use her nail to kind of cut the stems and things like that, or trim things. But I keep mine nice and short and trim, and I use nail clippers to do that. These are another thing that sometimes go missing in our house. And we also have a bigger pair, which we call toenail clippers. So we have nail clippers that we use for our fingers, and then we have a bigger pair that you can use to trim the nails on your toes, toenail clippers. These are really handy. We call them either rubber bands or elastic bands in Canada. I think in most parts of the world, they're called rubber bands. We use these for all kinds of things. When we make a bouquet of flowers, we put a rubber band on the bottom to hold all the stems together. Sometimes we have something in the kitchen as well that we want to close after we open it, and we'll put a rubber band around it to hold it closed. Sometimes in school, kids will they'll shoot rubber bands at each other. If students find rubber bands on the floor of the classroom, you can be sure that a rubber band is going to be shot somewhere. But a rubber band or elastic band is very stretchy, and it has many, many uses. It's one of those really handy things in life that you can use for almost anything. So again, I'm not sure which phrase is the Canadian phrase. We call them rubber bands and elastic bands. Maybe if Brent's still here, or if Rod, the English teacher, is still here, they can let us know what they call them, what the most common name is. I use both. Are there any elastic bands here? Has anyone seen any rubber bands? I need a rubber band. And then we have, of course, the twist tie. Whenever you buy something, like when I bought these headphones, they came all folded up and then there was a twist tie around it. A twist tie is a small piece of wire with paper around it or plastic, and it's used to kind of hold things together. The other day, I opened up a box at school and it had a new little webcam for my classroom. And then the wire from the webcam had a twist tie around it. When they put it in the box, they put all the wires together, and to keep them tidy, they put a twist tie around it. So twist ties, we usually keep our twist ties because sometimes we use them to reclose things as well in the kitchen. But now we have a drawer that has way too many twist ties in it. So you can see already from this lesson that this is a lesson of very random items that Bob the Canadian saw through his week and wrote down on his list, because the next one is what we call a bread tie. In Canada, when you buy bread, there's this little plastic thing on the end of the bread, and it almost always has the best before date or the expiry date on it. So it tells you how long the bread will be good for. Usually the bread's good for a week or so. You can see that this twist tie says best before October 2nd. So if I bought this bread on September 29th, it would be good till October 2nd. It would actually probably be okay on October 4th. By the 5th or 6th, the bread might be starting to go moldy. But bread ties are what holds the end of the bread bag closed. You can also shoot these, by the way. You can break them in half and you can put it on the end of your finger and you can shoot it at people. I don't recommend that though, it's dangerous. But when I was a kid, we did that quite often. So speaking of keys, keys are usually attached to a keychain. I don't think my keys are close by, no. Sometimes you have a key for your car, a key for your house or apartment, maybe a key for work, and you want to keep them all together. So you would put them on a keychain. A keychain is actually a popular thing for businesses to hand out in Canada. So sometimes when you buy things from certain businesses, they might give you a keychain so that you always remember them. So I have a keychain from the store where I buy feed for our animals. I have a keychain from the hardware store in our local town. I don't use them all. And some people collect keychains, actually. It can be a fun thing to collect. But usually at a certain point in your life, you have too many keys, so you put them all together. I remember when I was younger, I had one key, and then eventually I had two keys, so I got a keychain. I use coat hangers to hang up my shirts. After I wash my shirts and after I hang them up on the clothesline and use clothespins to hold them there, once they are dry, I usually put them on coat hangers. So even though it's a shirt, we still use the word coat hanger to talk about this. So I put my shirts on coat hangers. I usually kind of flatten them a bit and I hang them in my closet. And then when I go to wear my shirts, they're nice and they're flat and wrinkle free. So a coat hanger is something you use to hang up a coat or to hang up a shirt. And if you use the bar on the bottom, I even use coat hangers to hang up my pants. So that is a coat hanger, pretty useful everyday item. And my jacket is actually always on a coat hook. It's over there, you can't see it. But when I come home from work, I hang up my winter coat or I hang up my jacket on a coat hook. These are probably the most common type of coat hook in North America. You can buy them at any hardware store. They are very handy. They are nice and rounded on the top. So it's really easy to hang your coat on a coat hook or to hang your jacket on a coat hook. I don't usually put my coat on a coat hanger, but I could do that as well. It just happens to be that I have coat hooks in my studio or office here. So I usually just hang my coat on a coat hook. It's a little bit easier to do that way. This is something that I saw this week that is not very common in my house or at the place where I work, but it is an ashtray. When you see an ashtray in North America, it's kind of an old thing that people don't have a lot of anymore. Because in Canada, you can't smoke inside of restaurants. You can't smoke inside the mall. You can't smoke in the library. You can't smoke in buildings in Canada. A long time ago, you used to be able to smoke in buildings, like 20 years ago or more. And so you would see ashtrays everywhere that people would use if they were smokers. When I was a kid, my uncles were smokers. So when my parents had a birthday party, even though my parents didn't smoke, we would put ashtrays out for my uncles so that they could flick their cigarettes and then butt out their cigarettes in the ashtray. When you have something to drink, and when you set it down on a coffee table or on a table, often you will put a coaster under it. You will usually do this if you're putting it onto a really nice table. When I sit at my desk here and I have my giant mug that says gulp on it, by the way, with some tea in it, I don't set it down on a coaster. But a coaster is a small round piece of wood or cloth or other material that you put down before you put a hot drink or even a cold drink. In the summer, cold drinks, sometimes there's a lot of moisture on the outside. So you put a coaster down to protect the surface. We have a set of coasters that we use for our coffee table. And if we're drinking something hot, we might use a coaster on our kitchen table as well. Usually on nice wooden surfaces, you want to put a coaster down so that things are fine. I see Mode saying there was a bit of a hiccup. Now it's fine. Yeah, I just had a really quick error and then things were good again. So I'll just keep going. So we have things called pot holders, but we use these for two different things. You can use them to grab a hot pot, although I usually choose to use an oven mitt for that. There's something called an oven mitt. We use our pot holders to put on our table when we put a hot pot or pan of food on the table. So these are things that protect the surface of your table from something hot. So often when we serve dinner, we'll put some pot holders out on the table. Some people also call them hot pads. I think there might be another name as well. What do we call? Yeah, we do call them pot holders, even though we don't hold the pot with it. I guess the pot does sit on it, so that makes some sense. So we will put these out on the table in order to protect the surface of the table. And then there's something called an air freshener. I do not use air fresheners, but the most common kind of air freshener for a car is a pine scented air freshener. This is something that you hang in your car and it emits a pleasant smell. I actually don't like the smell of air fresheners, but many people will have an air freshener in their car hanging from the rearview mirror. So they'll go to the store and they'll buy a pine scented air freshener and they'll hang it from their rearview mirror and it will make their car smell nice. People sometimes use air fresheners in their house as well. That one looks a little different. The ones people use in North America actually plug into the wall. Then it heats up kind of a pleasant smelling, I'm not sure what the word for it would be, but it makes your house smell a little nicer. I actually don't like air fresheners though. I just like to have a really clean house that smells, just has normal smells like bread baking in the oven and those kinds of things. But people sometimes like to put up air fresheners. So I end up with a few of these through my week. Another everyday item would be a receipt. Whenever you buy something, you get a little piece of paper saying that you buy it. This is not my receipt from White Castle. I've only been to White Castle once. That restaurant doesn't exist in Canada, only in the US. But when you buy something, if I go to Tim Hortons, one of our local coffee shops, I get a receipt. When I go to the grocery store, when I'm done buying stuff, they give me a receipt. And then you can check your receipt to make sure you were charged the right amount. And on the receipt, there's a list of everything you bought and the price that you paid for it. So definitely I end up with a few of these everyday items as I go through my day and my week. I think I go to the grocery store about twice a week. I go to the coffee shop about twice a month. But somehow, as you go through life, you tend to have a few of these. Mine always end up in my wallet as I go through my week. So another thing that is definitely an everyday item in most people's houses is your remote control. You can't really use your television without having a remote control now. In my classroom, I have a remote control for my projector as well, and I have a remote control for the sound system in the classroom. So as I go through my day, I use remote controls at work, and then I use a remote control at night when I sit down to watch the news or to do something else. So definitely remote controls are a very common thing for people to see as they go through everything that they do in a day. So sometimes at work, I have to go to the bathroom or to the washroom. And when I'm done, I wash my hands. And then from the paper towel dispenser, I get a paper towel to dry my hands off. So I use the washroom or I use the bathroom. When I'm done, I wash my hands in the sink. And then I grab a paper towel or two from the paper towel dispenser and I use it to dry my hands off. This is something that I did regularly before the pandemic, but now I seem to be washing my hands a lot more often, not just after I use the washroom. I wash my hands at school before I eat lunch. I wash my hands after every class. So I'm often drying my hands with a paper towel that I grab from the paper towel dispenser. A very common activity, I think. I think the amount of hand washing in the world has gone way up in the last 2 years or year and a half. So this is something I don't use very often anymore, and it's called a postage stamp. But every once in a while, I do need to mail something. And so I do have stamps in the house. Canada did something really nice. Our postage stamps they don't have a price on them anymore. So it just says P in the Canada flag. It used to be 43 cents for a stamp and then 47 cents for a stamp. And I don't remember the prices, but the price kept going up every year. So finally, Canada just decided that stamps have you pay a price at the post office, but the stamp itself is good forever. So it doesn't matter if the cost of a stamp goes up. It's always good. So not necessarily an everyday item, but I do use stamps once a month or so. This is something that we use a lot more in the winter than in the summer. A thermostat. In the morning, I look at the thermostat to see how cold the house is because our furnace is off right now. And then sometimes I turn the furnace on using the thermostat because it's starting to get a little chilly outside. So the thermostat is definitely something that it controls your heating, by the way, and cooling in the summer. At school, students, our thermostats are actually locked inside of glass boxes because otherwise students try to change the temperature in the classroom. Recently, there have been a couple of COVID cases in my community, I would say. And so a thermometer is something that people have been using more lately because if you all of a sudden don't feel well, you want to check if you have a fever. So you would use a thermometer, a digital thermometer. You might have one that just goes in your ear. You might have one that you just point at your forehead, or you might have one like this that you put in your mouth or under your armpit in order to check your temperature. But definitely recently, a few people I know have checked their temperature and gotten COVID tests because, well, we're still in a pandemic, right? So when you feel a little bit hot, you want to use a thermometer to check your temperature. Change. I even have change right here. We don't use a lot of actual money in Canada, but I still end up with lots of change. We also call this loose change. The reason I say that is because we usually pay with our phone or with our bank card. We don't often use money anymore. When I go to the grocery store, I pay with my bank card, but I still sometimes buy things using cash, like using actual bills, and then I end up with lots of change. Sometimes there's enough change on my desk that I gather it all up and I take it to school and I can use it to buy lunch at the cafeteria. Sometimes there's enough there for me to do that. This is something that has become a lot more common for us since the pandemic started, and that's packages, usually from Amazon. I don't know where you buy most of your stuff online, but in North America, it's quite common for me to get an email saying your package has been delivered. And when I come home, there's one of these brown boxes with the Amazon logo on it saying that this package came from Amazon. We also use the word box. So you might say, yeah, a few boxes came for you today, or a couple packages came for you today. But definitely a lot more common since the pandemic has started. I usually have a flashlight somewhere just in case we have a power outage. It's nice to have a flashlight ready to go. The power doesn't go out in Canada very often, but when we have really bad storms, and in the winter, sometimes when we have ice storms, it's nice to have a flashlight just in case the power goes out. I've been reading actual books lately instead of on my Kindle. So instead of ebooks, I've been getting books from the library. And so I also usually have a bookmark somewhere so that when I'm done reading, I can put that in the book. So I read at night for a little bit, and when I'm done reading, I put my bookmark in so that I know where I left off. That's an interesting English phrase, isn't it? It helps me remember where I left off in the book. We have what are called fridge magnets. Fridge magnets come from all different places. As you know, a magnet is something that sticks to metal. Okay, it has a north and south pole and it will stick to anything metal. We use fridge magnets to put things on our fridge. So sometimes one of our kids will come home and they'll have something from school, like they got a really good grade on a test. We might use a fridge magnet to attach that to our fridge. And then it's just something that you use to hang things on your fridge for a little bit. Because I'm old, every night I have to take a pill. Because I had heart surgery, I'm on one type of medication. So this is an everyday item for me. Every day at around 9 p.m., I take my one pill. It's a pill that keeps my heart rate relatively low. I don't know what exactly it does. Should probably ask my doctor. But anyways, for some people, this is an everyday item. They need to take a pill every once in a while. I use extension cords in the house and on the farm whenever you want to plug something in. And if the outlet is too far away, you find an extension cord and you use the extension cord to connect whatever you're trying to plug in. Thankfully, nowadays, a lot of things run off batteries and the batteries last a long time. But there still are times when you need to find an extension cord in order to plug something in. And then this is an everyday item. There's hand sanitizer in my van, the entrance to the school, in my classroom, in the staff room. There is hand sanitizer everywhere in the world right now. When you walk out of the grocery store, when you walk into the grocery store, everywhere you go, you will find hand sanitizer. It is probably the most common everyday item right now in the world. I think I've seen hand sanitizer. I probably see hand sanitizer 10 times a day and use it 10 times a day. So definitely very, very common. And as well, of course, the mask. I at school am required to wear the blue, I guess, medical grade disposable mask. Canada still has a mask mandate, at least the province of Ontario does. We have been wearing masks since the spring of 2020. So this is not new for me, but I can't wear a cloth mask or a homemade mask at work. I must wear one of the blue masks at work. That is required. Sometimes people with long hair, girls especially, women and girls, will use bobby pins in order to hold their hair up. I find these in my house in all kinds of places because Jen and my girls sometimes use bobby pins in their hair. It's a small metal pin that you can use, like if you have, I don't really know a lot about it, but if you have long hair and you want to hold it back, you can put bobby pins in to kind of hold it nicely against your head. They're everywhere in my house. Am I giving away too much information? There tends to be bobby pins in a lot of funny places in my house. So I think that's just what happens when you're married to someone who uses them and when you have two daughters. And my name's Bob, so I don't know why the pin is named a bobby pin. A hair clip is something else that women will use to hold up their hair if they have long hair. It's usually spring loaded. When something's spring loaded, like a hair clip, when you open it, the spring makes it go back together. So there's a spring inside that makes it go back together. So we would say it's spring loaded. And then, of course, a lot of us have phones, and on the outside of our phone, we have a phone case. Recently, someone in my family bought a new phone, and so I recommended that they right away buy a phone case to protect their phone. It doesn't necessarily prevent damage to the phone if you drop it on a hard surface, but it's at least a little bit of protection just in case you do drop your phone or if it gets knocked out of your hands by someone and it falls on a hard floor. This is something I use a lot in the spring and in the summer and in the fall. Sometimes we have a lot of flies in our house. I don't know how they get in because we do have air conditioning, so all the windows are usually closed. But somehow flies get in and I need to use a fly swatter to kill them. It's very annoying when you have a lot of flies in your house and you have to constantly use the fly swatter to swat them. So that's the verb you use. When you have a fly swatter, you use it to swat flies. This is something I use as a teacher that you maybe don't use a lot. When I look at student work, when students give me their assignments, I use a red pen in order to grade the assignment. So definitely something that is an everyday item for me, but maybe not for all of you. And then glasses. I wear reading glasses in particular. glasses and contacts are everyday items for some people. I don't wear contacts, but I do wear reading glasses when I need to read. So when I need to read, it's a lot clearer for me if I put on my reading glasses. It helps my eyes focus clearly on what I'm reading. Some people in my family wear contacts, so that is definitely an everyday item for them to put contacts on in order to be able to see well as they go through their day. And then earbuds. I don't always have earbuds in my ears, but I almost always have earbuds with me. I have 3 pairs of these, one for my home computer, one for my work computer, and then I always keep a pair with my phone just in case I want to listen to something privately. So earbuds, of course, go in your ears and they allow you to listen to music or podcasts or even watch Netflix or other shows on your phone or on your computer. And then there's sunglasses, which you wear when it's really sunny outside. And then lastly, I'm still kind of old-fashioned. I still have a calculator on my desk here, and I have a calculator at school. I know that you can use an app on your phone in order to do calculations, in order to solve, like if you want to add something up or multiply 2 numbers together. But I still like having a regular old calculator, especially when I'm, calculating grades for students or something like that. It's very, very, very handy to have a calculator around.